Hi, Erica. I just wanted to go over your project with you because I noticed that you worked really hard at it, and that's awesome. I'm really impressed. But I just want to be clear about what the expectations are and what you need to correct. The first thing is describing the bonds of the structure. Your molecule is a big molecule, and it has a lot of different bonds. Remember, bonds are the things that connect atoms. Now, in this structure, it's what's called a condensed or abbreviated structure. So you notice things like where the lines are meeting and where they end, and there's no atoms written there. Those are carbons. So this right here is a carbon. That corner in the middle there. This is a carbon. So when you're describing the bonds, what you're supposed to do is you're supposed to describe the two atoms that are in the bond and the order of the bond. Is the bond a single bond like this? That's a single line, or a double bond like that. So for example, in your molecule, I know this is a nitrogen here. So N is nitrogen. And then here there's there's that corner there. So we know that's a carbon. Remember that spot right there is actually a carbon, actually a capital C. So we would describe this as a nitrogen carbon double bond, or you can call it a carbon nitrogen double bond. And that's what you would type in here. So you would write carbon nitrogen double bond, right? So that's one of them. So I just did this one. All right. Notice here you have a bond too. That's an O, an oxygen, and then here that corner here is a carbon as well. So that's going to be a carbon oxygen, and I'm going to have you fill that in. I want you to fill this in. What type of bond is this? This is a single line, so is that a single, double, or triple bond? All right, and then you're going to choose another one to do, like maybe let's do this one. So there's this S for sulfur, and then again, that's a carbon. If there's no letter written there, you know that's a carbon. So S and a carbon, so sulfur and a carbon. So we can call this a sulfur carbon. And again, I'm going to have you fill in the blank. What kind of bond is this? Is this a single, double, or triple bond? Okay. And I'm going to highlight this so you know exactly where it is you need to go. I'm going to highlight this in yellow. All right. So you're going to correct those. I did one of them. You have to do the last, fill in the blanks for the last two. Now, this part here says the type of substance that you have, if it's an ionic, covalent, or not. Now, your structure, you mentioned that this is a nonmetal. I think what you mean by that is that all the atoms are nonmetals. Carbon, hydrogens, nitrogen, sulfur, oxygen, they're all nonmetal atoms, and that is correct. So if you have a nonmetal atom only, what do you have? Is it ionic, covalent? Which one, right? So remember, this is where you want to go back into your notes. Okay, so when I say go back into your notes, if you go into the same folder that the project is in, so that's in Unit 4, Week 3, Tuesday, you will find the Part 2 presentation slides. And these slides contain the review material. So what I'm going to do is scroll down, and here's the section that you should be looking at. It sort of starts on slide 4, how to tell if a substance is metal, ionic, or covalent. Okay, and here's our first check for understanding. Which of the following is an ionic compound? And remember, to figure out if it's an ionic compound, if it's an ionic compound, it should have a metal and a non-metal. So the answer to that was choice C, because it had a metal. Lithium is a metal, and fluorine is a non-metal. Now, covalent molecules have all nonmetals, okay? So which of the following is a covalent molecule? And to answer that question, you need to figure out which ones have all nonmetals. All right, so the answer for that will depend on which one had all nonmetals. Now, if you're not sure exactly how to figure that out, that information is here, types of substances. So if your atoms are metals only, it's going to be a metallic. If your substance has metals and nonmetals, it's ionic. And if your substance has nonmetals only, it's covalent. So going back to your document here, in your document, you have nonmetals only. So which one is it? Is it ionic or is it covalent? So you have to correct that, okay? So I'm going to highlight this in yellow as well. And actually what I'll do is I'll type a sentence frame and you can fill this in. So this structure is blank. In that blank, I want you to put ionic or covalent because it has nonmetal atoms only. So your structure has nonmetal atoms only, so what does it make it, covalent or ionic? So put one of these words into that blank. All right, next thing, in terms of properties, you listed some properties here, but many of them are not the properties that I'm looking for. So I'm going to highlight the ones in, let's use a pink color here. These are the ones that you're going to have to take out in order to get points here. So what should these properties look or sound like? If we go back to that document, here we go. And if you go down to starting at slide 12, it lists the properties of different things. So if your substance was a metal, which it's not, these are the properties you could choose from to use. So if it was a metal, you could say it's solid. Oh, you can say it has a high melting point. It's insoluble. It's hard. Like all of that you can use for that section. But your substance is not a metal. It's either going to be ionic, right? Or it's going to be covalent. So these are the ones you're going to choose from based on what your substance is. So remember, you first have to decide in this part here, because it has all nonmetals, is it ionic or covalent? Once you know which one it is, then you go to this list of properties here and you figure it, then you can just choose from this list. So if your substance was ionic, you can say it's dull, it's brittle, soluble in water, high melting point, whatever. If your substance is covalent, you can say it's dull, it has a low, medium to low melting point, it's soft. Remember, for covalence, you also need to know if, in order for you to determine if it's soluble or not, you need to know if it's polar. So if it's going to be soluble in water, it has to be polar. And for that, if you look at your substance has some indicators that if it's covalent, it's going to be polar. So you might want to keep that in mind. And actually, you actually got the soluble in water part, so that part's good. That's good. You don't have to worry about that. All right. The last part here, the only thing you had to do for your fundamentals class is describe what it's used for. So this is the part that's important, and that's good. You don't have to really correct that. You can delete this last part here. Like this part here, you don't need. That was for honors chemistry only. All right, so I hope you found this video helpful in terms of what it is you need to do for your project. Please contact me through Schoology or send me an email if you have any more questions.